Joining us in the studio is MPP for Simcoe Grade, Jim Wilson. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, John.
Jim, so many things to talk about. It's great to have you back, but I want to center in on what's been, as you can imagine, a pretty hot topic in our community. That is the hospital relocation or potential relocation. I guess we got to keep our cards closer to the vest these days. There is...
I think we should relocate it. So
yes, okay.
I first made that clear on your show the last time I was on.
Yep.
And none of the other local media have ever asked me until I had my press conference just 3 weeks ago to announce that on May 18th we'll be doing a resolution in the Ontario Legislature to ask for the planning grant money for the hospital.
Now, there's a lot of things in the media about the hospital in terms of it almost seems like an argument or heated discussion between the hospital board, the town, and other groups lobbying somewhere in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
Where do you make sense of it? The worry is, a lot of people are worried, that this is going to injure our opportunity to finish all of the proposals we need to have done and to make sure we get the money to do the deed we need to have done to the hospital. Yeah,
it's crucial. And I've explained privately to council, and of course the hospital knows this, as part of the 5-part planning process, which may take a number of years. Part 1 is you have to satisfy the government at Queen's Park that the community's able to, first of all, raise the money, that the community's united behind the project, and that you can, it could be a little later down the road, actually, in terms of where you actually locate the building, but you need to make the decision whether you're going to redevelop.
Right.
You know, and that pretty well means on-site or on a new site. Eventually the government comes looking for these things, but unanimity right now is absolutely important, and I think we'll get it. I mean, the town's doing its due diligence, and it's got some planning to change, but I've said from the beginning, as I said on your show last, I was going to support whatever decision the hospital board came up with. Privately, in the back of my mind, I was always hoping it would be Poplar Side Road. Ever since Mr. DePoche put the land up, I thought that was, a pretty good start to a very big project. And we're looking in the future. We're going to need another nursing home or long-term care home up here. We need it now.
So you need a place that's got some space beside it.
Yeah, and 100 acres would be great. Yeah. And you want a campus, and it's a great fit. I noticed, I think it was Paul Darby recently writing a letter in the local paper, the former president and CEO of the hospital, talking about what a great fit that would be with Georgian College and possible courses that they'll teach on the campus. So I just think it's a win-win for everyone, and I know the town council will get behind it. If it's an election issue next year, when the municipal elections, I believe, in October of 2018, we go in June of 2018. Certainly, if it's still an issue, I think people would have a hard time running against the wishes of the hospital board.
In terms of the short term, are we at jeopardy? Are we in danger of losing? A lot of people are likening this to, remember the multi-use build we tried to get? The money was on the table. Council couldn't get it together. Next thing you know, we lost it.
Yeah, I think it's really early in the process to say that we're losing anything. It's going to be straight politics. And the unfortunate thing is that there's a lot of hospitals in Ontario that were built at about the same time, late 1950s or early 1960s, as in the case of Alliston. And they're just all due. And they're $400 million projects, $250 million projects, and that's at the low end. But the government's just finished building the billion-dollar ones.
Right.
Ottawa's getting a $2 billion one, but you have the Humber River Hospital right off the 401 there at Kiel. It was over $1 billion. Windsor the same. So the big projects are being wound up, and they're now starting to move into the small town rural areas. For instance, when I asked a question about this hospital in the legislature 3 weeks ago, the Minister of Health got up and said, "I look forward to seeing you at the sod turning for Markdale." Well, we've been working on Markdale, that small rural hospital, for 13 years.
Right.
They got a planning grant 13 years ago when I used to represent Markdale. It goes back and forth, but there was a period of 4 years when I had it, and George Smitherman gave us at that time it was a $5 million planning grant to get going. So on May 18th, we're asking people to come down to Queen's Park. The hospital is making a bus or two available. I think there's a small fee to pay for the bus. We want to show the government that the community is united. We don't have to talk about sites at that time, but
right.
we have to be united around the need for the new hospital. That's clear. The fact that we're willing to raise the tens of millions that we're going to have to raise over the next few years, and then we'd like to get the process formally going. The hospital has already spent $1.2 million or so of its own dollars, and that's frontline healthcare money that they're using for planning. We need another 10 or 11 million to get through all 5 stages, which does take, under normal circumstances, a number of years. So
10 or $11 million to hope we get the opportunity to build and relocate.
That's to satisfy the government and put in the business case and do the drawings and right down to every square inch of planning.
Right.
And make sure the studies are done and all the projections of population and that and volumes. Yep, it's a lot of money, but the good news, that's included in the $400 million that the whole thing might cost.
The other good side of this is, as our MPP, you've been through as a health critic and then eventually health minister. You know how this world operates.
Yeah.
So you're well versed in this. What's your advice right now to the town and to the hospital to kind of meet in the middle and start working together?
Well, I think they are.
Okay.
I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and people are talking, and that's great. But at the end of the day, it's a provincial government project,
right? So
you don't really need to, be unfriendly to each other here in town when the decision is going to be made at Queen's Park,
right?
At the end of the day, that's clear. Even with my wishes of Poplar Side Road. The ministry may have a different recommendation to make to the politicians when that time comes. Depends. Other things might happen. But right now it looks like Poplar Side Road. And right now from the local health integration network, the LIN, which is the first stage, we're pretty well we're not formally through it, but we're informally
But they're
through
liking
it.
what they're seeing.
They're telling us all the right things.
Okay.
And it's a matter of it's going to be political will. And it's a progressive conservative. It's conservative riding. The vote on the 18th is crucial. It could either, if the government doesn't vote to give us the planning money, so votes down the resolution, then don't reward bad behavior in the next election on June 7th of 2018. I think the Liberals would have a very hard time running a candidate up here, or in the south end of the riding for that matter, with the Alliston Hospital, if they don't at least show some goodwill on May 18th. So it's a crucial vote. So we've been at this since about 2008. The first formal document planning document went in from the hospital to the Ministry of Health in 2010. And then I think the chronology might be on their website, but 2010 is my recollection. And we've been at it, but we've never tested the political waters. And that's what's so crucial on May 18th. There won't be, it's private members' time. There won't necessarily be a full house or anything, so people shouldn't expect that. But the government has a majority.
Right.
And they'll control that vote. They always do, even though it's called private members and you're free to vote. But
let's be honest about it.
Yeah, they have majority, and they'll make sure they have majority there that afternoon. In fact, when I did the windmill one, the premier, for the first time in 14 years, she came in. I'd never seen it before. No, I'd only seen it once before. McGinty did it once, and voted against my resolution against the 500-foot wind turbines last year. Yeah, that was unusual. And I still someday I still want to have an investigation of what was the money behind that and what was going on, because why would a premier come in during private members, hour and vote against you on a very specific project in a very local area? I mean, it wasn't a province-wide issue. It was our problem, right? So it'd be interesting to see what she does on the 18th, whether she shows up for the vote or not. But they'll control that vote, and it'll be a sign to us of whether they're going to be part of this journey with us, or we're going to have to fight them every step of the way. What's
the benefit? What's the power that you wield if we have a great turnout for this May 18th vote? Well,
I think it's. I know from other issues. For instance, a few years ago, George Smitherman was minister and Dalton McGuinney was premier. They closed the birthing unit at the Alliston Hospital.
Right.
Well, Honda paid for the buses because they were very concerned. They have young employees and they want a full service hospital. So they pitched in and paid for a couple of buses to come down. And I know from the debates that day, we didn't win the debate that day, but we won it 2 weeks later. They wanted to save face on the vote that day.
Right.
But then George Smitherman came over and he said you had a lot of people here I'm getting a lot of emails. We had almost 10,000 people sign a petition, and I just kept putting those in.
So it really worked.
So it intimidated them a little bit, and it worked. You know, they have to think about this riding isn't going to be conservative forever.
Right.
There's a ton of new people moving in. We're the first riding after the Greenbelt, so we're inundated with population. They're coming up, selling their $1 million houses in Toronto and coming up here. And I don't know what stripe they're at.
Sure.
You have to earn their respect and earn their vote.
Jim, if people want to get involved in this May 18th rally and head down to Toronto with you, where should they go? How do they get involved in this?
Well, they're best to just phone the hospital, and the hospital has all the information, or certainly phone my office at 446-1090, 1090, and we have all the information there too. Second thing that's important is a number of businesses. I know the hospital over the last two and a half weeks or so has been distributing a petition that I have to ask the government for the redevelopment.
Right.
So of the hospital. So there's a number of petitions around at various businesses because we need original signatures. So if we could do 10,000 signatures like we did with the birthing unit in Alliston, that has quite an effect on government. And maybe that's a high watermark, but because birthing unit was a very emotional.
Sure
we had people. I mean, I think we had babies signing petitions. Well, we might have, and I know some people signed it twice, but it has an effect on government. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. There's no doubt about it.
All right. Well, Jim Wilson, thank you so much for joining us. All the best on the 18th. Maybe we'll check in with you just shortly after that and see how everything went.
Great.
Thanks for joining us on Talk of the Town.